Hello, this is Lisa Lee, and welcome to the new space. We are going to have an echo today because I'm waiting for my furniture to arrive, and so until it does, you might hear some echoing. The fridge is louder than usual, I think, because of the echoing, and we're not in the office space yet, so forgive me for transitional noise, but I am excited to get into the energy of this reading. The energy here is perfect, actually. I have no complaints. Like, I was tapping in. Let's just see what comes out. I'm gonna bring the camera angle down so that we can see what is sort of a table for right now. And I'm gonna adjust the light a little bit. Boom, there we go. And we're gonna make the best of the setting. Let's see if I can move this back a little. I'll be right back. I like whatever error, and I'm praying that my voice picks up in the right way. I like whatever error we are in. We seem to be entering in I'm peeking into this energy, and the first thing that I notice is that we're entering into it's a new timeline, or it's an ordained timeline, but there's something about this pivot and this moment, especially the energy that I'm tapping into, everything really feels different. And I know that as a physical medium, I'm crazy sensitive to place, and I am. But shifting my place, as a physical, it's like putting my antenna in a new spot. I'm definitely picking up on a perspective here that it's paradigm shifting. And so that paradigm shift means new error, new place. The Siren. Who can it be now? The shapeshifter. And the warrior. And what is this? These two want to come out. The orphan and the thread. So we've got quite a story here coming with the mask. This is beautiful. I'm gonna have a little bit of coffee. So this is this reading has to kind of have as a sacred space, and I'm all about the sacred space, and I'm all about the holiness. But as we're entering into this sacred space, there's a cup of coffee here, and part of the reason why that cup of coffee is here is because, I'm tuning in, and it feels different. The perspective is different, that pivot, that shift. And because of the environment being the way that it is, the energy that I'm working with right now, and the environment has to have a casual sort of feel to it. It's part of the alchemy of what we're cooking. And the fact that we're in the kitchen, there's something that we're cooking. And so I'm kind of excited about the message as it's coming through. It's almost coming through in a story form. So part of the story is new perspective. Another part of the story is we're cooking something up. Another part of the story is part of what the ingredients are is relax. This is a relaxed, yes, sacred space, but we're not clenched. We're not addressing, so there's a lot here that I'm getting in the way of multi-sensory messages, and that's kind of unusual for me. So there's something about this newness that's coming in with the mass that's putting us in touch with this, there's a core. I feel like a core. There's something about the core with shapeshifter here. There's something about your core. So let's see. Let me just feel into this. The orphan and the thread. Part of what's interesting about this new orientation, that's the best way to put it. It's a new orientation. Part of what is different about this new orientation is, I think that you've tried to take off your mask before 1,001 times. And there is something about, I'm hearing something like a crying uncle or mercy within yourself. That eclipse season was insane, and I don't think anyone in this collective escaped without that particular roller coaster that we talked about in the last couple of readings. And I do want to return to the astro readings because I like that. That was fun, and there's some really cool intergalactic energy that I'm tapping into in this part of the country. So we will be doing more with the stars, but in terms of what this means for the moment now is intense. Or it has been intense, but what we're coasting into is kind of a liberation with the thread and the orphan here. What we're coasting into is because the way that this looks right now with the hand reaching out, and then we have the thread and somebody is pulling. Like I see this as being like something is pulling you. You're being pulled, like there's a rescue, kind of, sort of a rescue. Being pulled by like a thread though. And so let's get some cards. Take a deep breath. Yeah, there's something about relax, because I'm feeling the energies all around me being like, it's a relaxed fit. This next phase is a relaxed fit. Everything that we just went through was kind of a very intense. I'd even call it a reckoning. But where it's left is sort of flat. And where it's going is good. But not without challenge. You have a cacophony of characteristics here with the Siren, the Shapeshifter, and the Warrior, and the Mask that is really valuable. And I think that part of what your rescue is about you seeing yourself through the perspective of another, or from another perspective, like seeing yourself in a completely new way. That mask is interesting. It's kind of menacing. I'm trying to see something here. 2 of Cups with the 2 of Swords, with 3 of Pentacles, with the 5 of Pentacles, with this Temperance. The Shapeshifter card is coming up funny for me. I'm thinking that the cards should be in like the opposite directions so that you could see them better. We're gonna live in a wild world right now. We're just gonna go with it. Adaptability is coming up, right? Like, so I take everything in a reading. Like once I enter into that kind of prayer, I take even though we're like relaxed with a cup of coffee, I take everything in a reading as significant, because everything in a reading is significant. Like once you put a boundary of sacred around something and you're communicating with the divine, whether it's cards or coffee or, you know, just something that is ancillary that comes through, like there's something about the full picture coming into view for you, and like relaxed fit, like those two things, that combination, that makes this unveiling possible. But where we have the Shapeshifter and the 5 of Pentacles, like the easiest way for me to say this with, like, I want to say this with love, because everyone in our collective has been through so much like unbelievable ordeal, horrible, like, you know, it's almost like unmanageable pain that, like, I think collectively this is who we are. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I think it's actually like a really beautiful quality. I know that there's a lot of neurodivergence in this group, which means there's a lot of being misunderstood, and there's a lot of accommodating others for your survival. That's like a baseline on, like, you know, having a different orientation and having to accommodate the norm. Now, so I say the next thing with like a lot of love and a lot of care, and it applies to everyone here, including myself, because that's kind of what it is to work with energy, is to like never exempt yourself. I'm learning that. That's a kind of a new thing that I'm like, wait a minute. But here with the Shapeshifter and the 5 of Pentacles, we have a poverty of a core sense of self. We have a poverty around like anchoring, center of gravity, rootedness. And that there's a lot of different reasons for that, you know, and the mask here. And the reason I'm saying, you know, like this collective, and I'm feeling like if it's not neurodivergence, it's trauma divergence, which is the same thing. Or it's like something particular that sets you apart, that puts you in the in defense of accommodating, explaining position. That othering kind of destabilizes the core every time. And so when we kind of look at things from a new perspective, because I think that this new perspective, it's not just skin deep, it has like the reason why it's a relaxed fit is because it's not fear driven. It's not like an ambition to make a point, you know, a need to get there in time, you know, like there's no tyranny that I think that you've become accustomed to in a way of a world that doesn't fit right, or doesn't feel like it fits right. And so when we have the Knight of Pentacles being like one step at a time, this new phase is not a race I heard like a noise. And that not only is this new phase not a race, but the significance with the Orphan card here is that you have to have been one. Orphan is a very specific energy. The Orphan card is can't, like, some energies have like a fluidity, they're like a water sign, and then some energies are like straight up like earth sign, and Orphan is earth sign, and Orphan is like in survival mode, alone, scared shitless, unable to cope, with not enough resources and no hope in hell of like of anything other than the next hour or the next minute of peace. That's your only guarantee. And so when you are so conditioned to the present by the demands of the unmet needs that exist, you have like DEFCON threat like scanning that goes, you know, and goes and goes and goes. And that's an impoverishment of like genuine experience of yourself. So like that core self, that core impoverishment here is trying to find a sense of yourself without any good mirror, and looking at mirrors that not only like objectify you in one way or another, like because of your needs. Someone in need is objectified every time. Someone who is in a position of need is seen as like, and when I say objectified, I'm trying to like put this in terms of like other people have to make sense of how they fit in your life. And when you are an orphan, there's a lot that goes into the puzzle pieces around how they approach you and how they interact with you and what it means for them to try to understand you. And under the best of circumstances, you have compassion. But compassion is also a very tricky thing. And so when it comes to you accepting like this way out of an otherwise like impoverished situation around connectedness, love, there's a relaxed fit that like, you know, that is probably in one way or another a little bit of a confrontation. And the reason that I say that is because I see that the Two of Cups here, which is a card that is your relating, but not only is the Two of Cups a card of your relating, it's also a card of your the Two of Cups is a card of you see me and I see you and we see each other clearly. An impoverishment of experience related to being experienced means that you don't know if you're being seen clearly and you are scared about whether or not you're seeing someone else clear. And what it means for you to find your way with that is to be in this mask. And so that's where we have the loss of core self, because we're coming at it from an angle that is, like, I hear the word beseeching. That's a very disempowered place. And even if you are a powerful person with like powerful motivations, powerful ambitions, powerful positions, powerful drive, powerful outcome, even if you know what it means to lock in and ready and go and get it done, that's capable. You're capable. Being a capable person is very different than how you approach a situation when it comes to your own sense of your own value and your own sense of your own lovability and your own sense of like how like putting an outsized amount of weight on somebody else's opinion is taking into account their perspective over yours. Like it's saying, I see your perspective and I'm in a contentious debate with it because somehow it has power over me. That's not a good default. The default that we want is, this is my perspective. Whatever everybody else is doing is their fiction. And we all live in a form of fiction, which means we have to find ways to tell stories that make sense to others. That's a very important skill that we're all going to work on because it's crucial for we have to communicate. This is communication era we're entering. We're going to learn how to communicate right. It's sloppy. It's messy. It's a disaster. We do it with humor and lightheartedness until you throw the spaghetti at the wall until it sticks. Someday it will. It's okay. But this is about like you becoming impervious to whether or not the spaghetti sticks. And it's also you learning two very valuable skills. One is, what is your center of gravity? And the second is, how do you communicate it so that you can build bridges to where other people are located and not alienate them in the process of defining a difference. And so, you know, when it comes to this Two of Swords being in reversed, that means we have a breakthrough here for you around seeing yourself be seen. And this is going to be a slow process because you've been alone for a really long time in a really like crazy structure. And there's something here about this Ten of Pentacles, you know, influence of like being seen, like, you know what I mean? Like there is a value here to like what it means for you to be perceived, and you recognize that there's a value in being perceived, but there's so much work to be done to get out of the prison within yourself that keeps you from feeling vibrant and alive and like able to communicate your insights with powerful strength that is going to support you well, you know, and put you in your position. And you're gonna actually create of your abundance and the times in your life where you have, look at this, I'm just like picking the cards right off the bottom of the deck. And this stuff has been so shuffled that this is cool that the story is coming through like the way that it is. You being undervalued for a lot of different reasons, and we can get into all of them, and it doesn't have to be stories about persecution, because I think that might be like part of that Eight of Swords situation I felt a little bit there. This Five of Swords, like the battle, the warrior, you are a fighter, you have fought, but we're walking away from unfairness, inequality. The orphan position sucks, and there's a lot of ways in which that starts in childhood, and there needs to be healing around it. And like, you know, this is weird. It's like a culmination of your healing. Like you've been doing a lot of healing. There's no two ways about it. But what you're walking away from right now is like you're walking into that healing, through that healing, into a healed space. And so it's like you're at the end of a very long journey of trying to survive, and into this part of the healing journey where you do get to heal. And so this is where we're talking about the shapeshifter and the Five of Pentacles, the poverty of like a sense of your own core. Let's work on it. Because what you're doing here in terms of your giftedness, because you have the Siren card here under your giftedness. So beneath this mask that you're wearing, there's a lot of reasons we wear a mask. The Orphan does it for survival. The Orphan does it to, like, the Orphan's mask is the only means of survival. So a lot of you are shapeshifters very naturally, because life has put you in a position where the magic that your body and your DNA is developing is the ability to adapt to the people around you in a way that is seamless and disarming and elicits the best responses possible for your survival. And that's not manipulation, okay? It's just not. But again, because we're in a neurodivergent group where the necessity of masking is present, we also have the being misunderstood and the being villainized and demonized and suspicion around your mode of survival. And your mode of survival, when it comes to like accommodating others, it's a gift. It's a gift for the world with the Three of Pentacles here. You know, and so look, when we think about the frog that adapts in a completely dark environment, it learns to glow in the dark, you know, but it's still unacquainted with the sun. And so, you know, this process of delivering what it is that you have in the way of a siren quality, it makes people uncomfortable. There's a lot to having qualities that make people uncomfortable. Having charisma that makes people uncomfortable. Having beauty that makes people uncomfortable. Having vulnerabilities that makes people uncomfortable. Having like a tendency toward like, you know, meltdowns. That makes people uncomfortable. Meltdowns are like totally irrational. They're explosions of emotion that are exactly like a diarrhea. That's what it is. A meltdown is emotional diarrhea. Nobody wants to be around when you're like shitting your pants. Nobody wants to be in the same, you know, like no one wants to smell it. No one wants to see it. That's true. But that's nothing about, that doesn't devalue you. because you're having like issues. You know, like what the issues do, and there's a lot of different issues. You know, everybody has issues. You know, my favorite phrase is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. When you have imperfections, that lets people see you. That's part of what it means to take that mask off. When you fart in public, you're a human, right? But, and the action is not a failure. You know what I mean? Like, and no one would conceive that the action is a failure. And so when we think about your core strength, if what you have in the way of core strength is this need for perfection, or that you're perfect, or that you have to be perfect, or else there's going to be this Five of Pentacles, you're going to be left out, you're not going to be fed, you're not going to survive. You have to be perfect. You have to be perfectly understood. You have to be perfectly liked. You're going to be punished. There won't be any save. You won't be saved. You won't make it. You won't survive. That's all tyranny, right? So that shapeshifter there being about like not really having a sense of who you are. And that mask being about, you know, necessity with the orphan and the need to survive. What is a mask? Is it a manipulation? Or is it begging for mercy? And I think that that's where we look at ourselves and we say, like, we're in a cold world when begging for mercy is seen as, like, you know, like, I'm trying to get the right words for it. It's seen as some sort of a manipulation, right? All right, so let's keep it going. Flow. So like that's, you know, the Two of Swords is a blocked place. It's a stuck place in the head. It's, I don't know where I'm going. I can't go anywhere. I'm screwed. I can't, everything sucks, like shut down. Like life is terrible. Nothing's ever going to be good. It's just going to be headaches. I'm just going to be bothered. I'm just going to be upset. You know, like and it's also, like we have traps that we have to really be mindful of as people who have like, cause I was just in Texas where I felt like, where I was like actively bullied and persecuted. Like that was a reality. I stood up for things that like people had never even heard of outside of like the TV, you know, like the pundits, like, you know, I basically was like this, like, I was confrontational just because I existed in that space. And so I think that, like, you know, when it comes to, and that just threw me completely off the channel for a second because I just got, that was really traumatizing. Oh, but this is what I realized while I was there. So I was like, you know, I was like in this position where my neurodivergence, my differences, my otherness was seen as a threat and was attacked kind of like, you know, regularly. And, oh, it just happened again. Like I keep on like becoming like emotionally overwhelmed and sort of losing the train. See if I can get that. I just have to like channel and not kind of persecution. Okay. Neurodivergent people of the world, you know, my fellow, and I'm not excluding people in this collective that aren't, but I just think you all are. Like, I'll be honest, like if you're in here, chances are like you have either been traumatized to the degree that you have like that the synapses that are alive in your mind are like pattern recognition, or like there's an otherness that I feel with this group. And so I want to say, like, as persecuted people, as people who have been persecuted, as people who experience a lot of persecution, we have to be really careful about erring, like, you know, like choosing to like default at our own powerlessness. Venus is love, challenge, and feelings. With Scorpio, second house of assets, the edge. With the fourth house, oh my gosh, this is going to be fun. Our bottom of the deck energy here is transformation with Pluto. So I think that this is apropos, like in a lot of different ways. And so I'm going to give like Pluto is about renewal, inner resources, basic instinct, motivation, personal power, evolution, composting, cycles, death, rebirth, subversion, suspicion, obsession, intensity, taboos, extremes. This is a time of one step at a time and flow. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because there's nothing perfect about healing. There's nothing perfect about coming to grips with a weak inner core. That weak inner core is a relationship poison. But it's not there because you're a bad person. What it means for you to learn how to communicate from a place of strength, the alchemy that is required here, the transformation, is that you're reckoning with extremes of agony from this orphan position. And what does the orphan do when they put their hand out to receive? The orphan does not receive in a way that is without guard. The orphan does not receive in a way that is without defenses. The orphan is a warrior at the level of, like, it's habitual. And so to take this path out of that space, and it's a path of maturity, to start as the orphan and to emotionally mature from the starting line of the orphan. And I'm seeing those TikToks where everybody is like the mom and her two kids are lined up in a row, and the mom says, like, take a step forward if you had both parents, take a step forward if you got to, like, be in the same school for your whole education, take a step forward if you got, the mom got nothing and the kids get it all. You know what I mean? So there's this weird way in which, like, this default place, the place where you're starting your emotional maturity journey as the orphan, is a very vulnerable position where you have to take off of your defenses. And I'm seeing that vision of Inanna descending into, like, the truth of herself. And with the shapeshifter and the Five of Pentacles descending into the truth of yourself, reckoning with that orphan position. What we're trying to fix here is entering the encounter, entering every social, every interpersonal encounter, from a perspective of the orphan, is going to be a pattern that starts you at a certain place. And so for the orphan, it's taking off the armor one piece at a time in order to move from that space of darkness, into a space that says, like, okay, like, there's a rope here. Captivity is a weird thing, and it's coming up for me because I'm seeing the OA. And the OA, when you've been in captivity for a very long time, you develop a dependence on your captor every single time. And it's a codependence too. And that's, like, a sick part of what it, then I'm taking a sip of coffee. That's a sick part of what it means to relate. The orphan, is easily captured, and the orphan finds themselves in situations with perverts or predators, or the orphan is not negotiating with a shield of a parent. The orphan finds themselves in these positions. And so if you have a pattern of relating, that is from, like, there's something so significant about that with the transformation here. Because I think that, like, we can't really look at this impoverishment here related to the core, as a defect, because it's not. With the fourth house, which is roots, family, home, background, comfort, cooking, inner world, real estate, shelter, self-care, rejuvenation, habits, and shell, and the innovator with Aquarius. Like the shapeshifter here and Aquarius, this is a similar energy. And so I encourage you to first and foremost, especially with this quality of the Siren, first and foremost, kind of like begin to think of yourself as, take the bait out of it. When you think of yourself as bait, when you think of yourself as victim, when you are used to being persecuted, when you consider what it would mean to come into the world from another perspective and have that feel threatening and unguarded and like, you know, set off bells. There's a lot of triggers in this walk out with the warrior here that need to be alchemized. And so with the Aquarius, and when we start to think about, like, you know, for you, taking off the armor is not just about putting down defenses and fears. It's also about stepping into a sense of self where you are identifying with what is there as a sense of self. And so one of the things I encourage you to do is embrace that you are weird. Because taking off the mask is fraught with being too weird for people's comfort zones and having to put the mask right back on. Because you take it off and then you can see that they don't want to deal with your sensitivity. You can take it off and you can see that they don't want to deal with your capacity to melt down. You know, you can take it off and you can see that they want to control how you express it so that it doesn't like cause them discomfort, or, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of ways in which you have to negotiate with the reveal of yourself and the reception of that reveal. And it's hard with Orphan and no mirroring, or no capacity to see the mirroring in a way that like reflects to you like sense. You know, there's so many reasons why we have blind spots that don't even have anything to do with the other person. And so with Aquarius there being about like identifying your strengths and knowing that one of them is that there is a little bit of a disconnect between how you're received and how you perceive yourself, and that there's work to be done one step at a time at what it means to express and convey it. And so taking off that mask, you know, for you is also kind of like a process of discovery. When you've been forced to only wear a mask or receive persecution and ridicule or misunderstanding, then you only relate to yourself as being related to through like a degree of separation where you don't even see yourself in the eyes of others. You see how other people see your mask, and that's usually a painful process. And so with the Aquarius there, being able to say, okay, first of all, I'm not easily seen. And when I do convey myself, there's often a misunderstanding. That's step one. That's okay though, you know, because eclectic, you know, radical, eccentric, diverse, futuristic, utopian, idiosyncratic, disruptive, edgy, detached, like these are your qualities, you know, and they don't make you a bad person. And so part of what it is to come into a place where you're developing a stronger core self, like if you look at this card, you can see this person is really beat up. They're broken. That's why they feel vulnerable. Everything hurts. They don't keep up. They're not going to keep up. They might end up all by themselves, like, you know, with no hope for water because everybody's faster. You know, they have to depend on someone to be a little slower. You know, this is a bad position to not have for your core self to be comprised of something that is alienated like this. You know, it's not on purpose, you know what I mean? But it causes the shape shifting. Because why the shape shifting is significant is because this person has to walk at this pace, or else they risk their this is where the orphan comes in. Because even if you had parents, having to walk at this pace when you feel like this and having to keep that up, when is there time to develop a sense of self? You know, where is that going to come in? And so when you know what this phase is, and you understand that this phase is about developing a sense of self, it's not about other people. People are going to misunderstand Aquarius. They're going to misunderstand Aquarius. And that's okay. So like grappling with that and not letting it be something that defines you as unable to keep up, but rather letting it be something that defines you as just simply at a different pace, with different pace, on different rhythm, having other experience, off the beat. You know, that, let's start with that as being an asset here with the second house. Because we're gonna look at these qualities as either assets or disabling, yes. You know what I mean? Because again, I'm saying like a persecuted group does have to contend with some level of disability. That's the truth. What gets persecuted? Non-compliant. What is non-compliant? Someone who can't work. That doesn't mean you can't work. It means you can't work in a certain kind of way, at a certain kind of beat, on a certain kind of drum. What you do in the way of moving in progress is going to be healing for a while. Because where's that card? It just disappeared. Oh, here it is. You know, this is a different pace. And is this person less than? Like, no, absolutely not. But do we live in a world that you have to throw that messaging off in order to be where you are with where you're, you know, you can push yourself and keep that mask on so that nobody thinks that you're going to be a burden, you know, because you're not a burden. You're an Aquarius. You're quirky, right? And so for you to root, you know, for you to kind of like go back to what it means to reckon with this family background is to understand that you are welcome as weird. And that might be hard for you to accept. Because again, when we take that mask off and people don't react right, we think I'm not welcome as weird. And so, but welcome as weird is something that starts with home and starts with you in your home, welcoming yourself as weird. I welcome that I am weird. And weird is not a dirty word in this. I'm just using it synonymous with Aquarius. And I want you to study up on what Aquarius is. I want you to kind of look into that because, you know, you have challenges here. And I think that, ooh, that's all right. I just got like this pain. I felt it. Ooh, that was a very painful shot of like agony that just like went up my middle system. You are challenged here at the level of your feelings. You've got big feelings, real big feelings. And you need to find a way to turn those big feelings into assets, which is like this is an interesting challenge for you. I think you're aware of what that challenge looks like, I think others are aware of your challenge, right? And I just heard a cat chime in. Others are aware of your challenge with the 11th house here and humanity. The 11th house is friendship, group creativity, community, humanity, hope, tribe, festivals, discoveries, common goals, startups, rebellion, experimentation, the future. You have to find a way, you know, part of your core and coming into your core strength and what it means for you to develop this core strength here is encountering this challenge of your feelings and what those feelings are, the value of those feelings to community. Finding your value is part of what this core strength and building this core strength is all about. And finding your value is less about like purpose in terms of like being received and more about purpose in terms of like receiving yourself. And so this is this alchemizing that has to happen around the orphan and the warrior energy. And so when we think about the Siren and we think about Venus and Scorpio, we have you transforming right now in a really big way. Pluto over here, transformation, you know, mask coming off, transformation. Siren, Venus, Scorpio, transformation. The shapeshifter, you know, that impoverishment of core self, that hurt, that reckoning of othering, you know, that finding a way to root despite incredible challenges related to that feeling space and the value of what you have to offer. There's a lot here, you know, that I want you to slow down for. And I want you to just like smell that, like, and I mean like smell. I see someone like smelling flowers. I'm just trying to feel this because it's like an interesting, like you're going through a major transformation, but slow. Be slow. Calm down, you're panicking. Like, I don't know why I'm saying that, but like when the shapeshifter and the Five of Pentacles, that's like panic. That's some panic. But you are putting down your defenses around being seen and allowing yourself to be seen. You are in a major transformation here with the Knight of Pentacles. There's ugly shit that's going to come up in whatever way that it does. But it doesn't remain. You know what I mean? Like, look at all the characters around this one step at a time. Everybody's in a different story. You know, part of your learning to develop your core strength is recognizing that other people's stories are not a threat to your life. They're not. A story that somebody else has is just something that's like anticipating being corrected by your example and your presence. You bring your presence, it corrects and dispels all mythology. The presence always dispels the story that tries to contain it. Once you understand that, you stop giving power to stories. And so I think that like one of the first things that you need to do in terms of like allowing yourself to be in this transformation is be able to understand that other people's stories aren't powerful. They're just there to be dispelled. They're like vapors that need to be fucking like blown away. The Queen of Pentacles here is, let me take a look. I can feel like this Five of Pentacles, like burn victim, like other persecuted orphan feeling. And that's over. Like, I want to just like, I don't know how to get this through to you. Like, I feel like we need to like create a whiteboard or something. Maybe we need to all do a group. Let's do a group of art, like a group art project. Patreon people. Let's do a group art project. I want us to like officially commemorate that period of orphaning is over. And I want us to do some kind of a piece of art, some kind of a ritual. Oh my God, I just got so hit with pain. Holy shit. Oh my, whoa, I just felt something. Wait, let me just, I just felt something really, really powerful. And like, forgive the, I need like my stuff, like I can't even get ready. But I felt, the power of the suggestion that was coming through is, oh man, cat. Friend, Toby. Can you not ruin the moment, please? This is a big deal. When we bury the orphan, and when I say bury the orphan, like I can't say, whoa. When I say bury the orphan, I mean like the orphan served us. The orphan kept us alive. The orphan was like a huge part of who you like. I wish this wasn't happening. Toby! All right. Let's hope he just goes in there. I'm like, we're having like tears and the cat's like, I'm gonna play drums. The orphan kept your sense of humor. You know what I mean? The orphan is something that when we have a funeral for the orphan, when we honor the orphan, like I think that like the juncture of release that we're looking at in terms of moving out of this phase with the orphan is not leaving the orphan behind. It's like having a memorial, having an honoring, like we don't move from one archetype to another without a proper reverence and thank you. And so like I just saw this like funeral for the orphan, like where we finally bury that orphan part of ourselves, and let that part move on and pass on and become something different. Like I see a death and resurrection at the level of Pluto and transformation, around that. You know, and so yeah, I like that as a project. Let's come back to the cards. And yeah, so we have to have a proper funeral, and I think that that's kind of where, you know, the orphan serves us, and the orphan keeps us alive, and the ancestors that were orphans, and the guides that are orphans, like we need to love that archetype probably more than any other, but we also need to like allow this transition. That's that Temperance and the Warrior card here. And so with the Seven of Pentacles, meaning that there's work to be done on you sort of getting to that place of healing that elevates you. And so like when the Aquarius learns how to communicate, it is such an asset to community because it is such a different perspective. That's where that different perspective comes in as being so important. And so part of your core strength has to be valuing your difference in perspective, valuing your difference. And that will be the elevation here, but there's work to be done. And so, you know, what you're feeling in the way of like I feel you still trying to like settle into a place that is like the Five of Pentacles, the orphaning, that orphan place is so familiar. So communicating what you want and getting clear on what you want with yourself first. Not easy. And it's not just by yourself. You can, you know, part of leaving that orphan phase is learning how to communicate these depths with the Scorpio, like love and Scorpio, and Three of Pentacles. Three of Pentacles is you're building a cathedral network, priest, you know, like you're building something really, really powerful with this transformation. And it's not a transformation of benign forces. You've got like passionate, you know, secretive, obsessive, intimate, lusty, primal, like mysterious, you know, there is something here about like your Siren qualities that you have to be able to bring to build in community with Venus, like your allure, your lovability, your beauty, your charm, receiving, sensuality, luxury, wealth, magnetism, pleasure, adoration. Like there's some issues here with like that Scorpio energy that is seen so shadow, that Siren that is also seen in shadow, and then this Venus, like allowing yourself to be loved. Like I see that at the core of this mask, and I guess I'm gonna just like, this is important, at the core of what this mask is for you is reckoning with the part of you that other people are reckoning with. Like I'm trying to get this right because I want to be careful, but persecution, being misunderstood, being projected on, the divine feminine aspect of God, and being an energy. And I want to, one day we'll have the right language that everybody agrees on, and I won't have to continue to feel like it's so necessary to emphasize that everyone has, this is an incredible energy that we have, that everyone has. Divine feminine energy is sexual and sensual and alluring and mysterious and dangerous. She's dangerous. She's dangerous because she's beautiful. She's dangerous because she has power. She's dangerous because you don't know exactly who she is, where she is, what she's doing, why she's doing it. She's dangerous because she makes, you know, she's not easy to read. Like there is this quality here that you have to be able to love in yourself. And the conflict, you know, with the Three of Pentacles being about building the cathedral, like where do you fit in as somebody who has these Scorpio qualities? The Siren, where does that fit in building something in community, in being seen and understood and loved? There's conflict there. There's challenge there. You know, when we talk about othering, we're not, oh, I get it, I see it. You know, with the mask here, you've tried to take the mask off in vulnerability all the time, taking the mask off in the vulnerability, and people are uncomfortable. No one knows what to do with somebody else's vulnerability, generally speaking. People like have to like flounder around it. It's a lot, you know, it's just one of those things where that core of self can't be like torn down or washed. Like I see a sandcastle, the wave comes, the devastation washes it back. There's no way to get a grip. No one will accept whatever you're offering, right? But what I see here in the way of masking is not just masking, you take the mask down with the vulnerability because you think that's acceptable, that no one's going to hurt you at that juncture because it's a type of like asking for mercy. But where the mask kind of gets funky is where people project, right? And if you have this tendency of being projected upon in a very particular way, it's because you embody that archetype. And embodying that archetype, there's nothing wrong with it. That's a good archetype to embody. You're welcome embodying that archetype. That archetype is part of who you are. In the same way, it's like you have a shape of your nose, you have an archetype. You have an archetypal structure. And so if one of the archetypes that you embody powerfully is this beautiful energy of a siren, that means that people are going to either identify with the shadow attributes of that archetype or the light attributes of that archetype, depending on where they are in relationship to it. And that has nothing to do with you. And so a lot of times we will hide our qualities because we embody an archetype that is often getting tripped up with other people, that is often projected upon in a negative way, that is often villainized, demonized, feared, persecuted, maligned, deemed manipulative. And so it's very hard to identify with certain archetypes. It's very hard to identify with the archetype of witch, because that's a crazy person. That's good, that's all the mental stuff. So when we think about your Aquarius and your differences, part of what it is to take your mask off is to willingly embody the archetype that you are, but also understand that there are always going to be costs to authentic expression. There are always going to be costs to identifying yourself as yourself. And that's not about you, right? Because there's always going to be value in it too. And so I see with the warrior here, there is a need to fight with this alchemization. There's a part of this challenge with the square here and the moon and your feelings and your value and what you have to offer the world. There's a very real challenge here to your life story and who you are when it comes to having core strength and standing proudly and firmly and rooting in a challenged position related to embodying certain archetypes that people have problems with, that are ancient, the fear of the witch comes from epigenetics, where expressing spiritual authority as a woman meant you were going to be murdered, and that means that people don't like it, even if they agree with it, even if they're yes, that's 100% fine. It tickles something uncomfortable in the way of threat. To embody the siren, to be beautiful in a certain kind of way, vampire, you know what I mean? It's to attract people in or to be seen in a certain kind of way. Let's take a look. Yeah, prostitute vampire. Who the fuck wants that, right? Lover, the siren is essentially a lover. The lore around the siren, when you think about the lore around the siren, this is very, very good, because what is the siren? The sailors are out at sea. They're just so innocent and gorgeous, with the sea, look at them go, and then they hear the sound of a beautiful song. And they are drawn into the song, and it's enchanting, and it's beautiful, and they can't resist it, and it's all empowering, and it makes them forget their survival instincts, and they jump into the ocean. And then what happens? Then the beautiful voice and the beautiful maiden singing in the sea creature, she drags them down and she sucks their fucking life out, and she's a vampire prostitute. For sex, they are dead, right? That's the contrast is that she's a lover, or she's singing, and it's her song and it's her passion, and she's lovely and she's beautiful and she is alluring and she is enchanting, and so when we think about the challenges that you face here with finding love and being loved and being appreciated, they're significant because they're not just at the level of your deficits and your disabilities. They're at the levels of your strengths and other people's comfort level with your strengths. And so I kind of feel you in a very challenged place with your emotions. Like, there's no two ways about it. And like with the Queen of Pentacles here being about, like, you know, that's an energy that is established, you know what I mean? Or at least trying to establish, you know what I mean? Like, because I see that Queen of Pentacles, you know, the energy of the Queen of Pentacles, whether it represents you trying to establish yourself or it represents like the establishment or established, you know, like this is working together with the Three of Pentacles. The Siren has to work together, you know, with others in receiving love and being worthy of love. And it's very difficult with the Scorpio, the intensity, you know. Scorpio and Siren are like, that's a tough archetype, you know. That's the obsessive, like intimate, primal, lusty, you know, mysterious, compulsive, you know, manipulative, intense, passionate, secretive. That's a hard archetype, but it's also transformation. You know, it's also like, it's like Lilith energy. It's a beautiful energy. And so I think with the lover there, you know, obsessive, like when we have the archetype of the lover, let's rebrand the Siren, you know, because we have to, you know, because you have to be able to embody the archetypes that you hold. That's kind of what your authentic expression ends up being, is boldly embodying the truth of who you are, is accepting who you are, and you're made up of archetypal structures in shadow and in light, and the way that they express is unique to you kaleidoscopically, but it's never benign. And because it's never benign, you know, we're always sort of having to negotiate with where other people are and recognizing, like, whatever they recognize, whatever people project is about them. I promise you, every single time. And that's why you don't condemn people for their wrong projections, but you do correct them with your truths. And again, those truths are embodied. The power of persuasion is really limited. You embody the truth of who you are. It's going to break up the fiction that somebody is projecting on you pretty fast. And so when you talk about this archetype of the lover, we're going to, like, you know, the Siren is a beautiful thing, a beautiful divine feminine magic self archetype, like quality that has a place in the world, you know. And even if you are considered some sort of vampire prostitute, and I want to be careful about that, you know, because I think that when we show up as ourselves in our own beauty and we don't apologize for it, that elicits a certain response from others. That is, are you going to give me that thing that you embody? Am I going to have it? Is it going to be something that I own and have and touch and it's mine? Like, there's something that happens when people encounter something that they perceive as desirable. You know, and so people can have that reaction, right? Or they could have a reaction that is like repellent, you know, like they're saying, like, you know, you have a power that can take from me, can hurt me, you know. And so, like, when we think about, like, there's powerful energies here that are elicited with both of these cards. Prostitute, you know, accentuates the challenge of surviving without negotiating the power of your spirit. But placing material considerations and security above self-empowerment is also at play, you know what I mean? And like with the vampire attributes here, you know, makes you aware that someone or something is draining your life force. And then the shadow attribute is depleting others for your psychic survival, chronic complaining, and codependency. people are projecting their own crap at you. You know what I mean? Their own fear of, like, you know, not having enough, or having what is theirs, you know, somehow depleted by what you need. Like, there's a lot that goes into whatever this is, because it's a lot on this table. But when we change the story and we take the Siren and we say, no, the Siren is not some dangerous thing. The Siren is a lover. You know, like, that's what that is. The shadow attribute of lover is obsessive passion that harms others and self-destructive devotion. There's always a risk, you know, with being a free spirit and, you know, following your inner vision and the guardian angel that accompanies you, like, and the Pisces here. So, like, there's always a risk in showing up authentically that you're not going to be received exactly as you want to be received. But what it is to develop a core strength here with the shapeshifter and the Five of Pentacles is less about, I'm trying to get this right because it's a very tricky way of like embodying yourself, and whatever that means, come what may, allowing yourself to be known and loved through that embodying of yourself. And that might be a lot of explaining, you know, but at the same time, it's the only way. You know what I mean? Like, that's the only way. And to do so, like, flow with it one step at a time. It's going to be a little bit rocky, because it's always a little bit of rocky when you try to, like, connect. And so, like, as you are attempting to connect with people, as you're attempting to leave behind patterns of survival that you needed, and as you, like, bury that orphan, which I kind of feel is something that you need to do for yourself, you step into what it is to be perceived. And in being perceived, you forge through that inner vision and that commitment to your own free and true expression, the core self, the strong pillar. And so that shape-shifting attribute that is actually, again, it's an archetype that you embody. And it's traits, you know what I mean? Like, it's this mask, you know, the mask goes with, you mask competence, you know, like, is not saying you're incompetent, but it also means that you are putting on a show of competence, which is separate from being competent. You know what I mean? Like, there's all these things, one degree of separation from being met where you are. And so being met where you are is about being transparent, but it's also about, like, when you're transparent and you show up, you allow for the possibility of being misunderstood so that you can become seen. If you never even allow for the possibility of being misunderstood, or if you equate misunderstanding with a personal attack, because it's often very similar, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to do that. You miss what is so beautiful and powerful about the alchemy of transformation, you know, that are within these destined points, you know, of conversation and encounter and conflict. Like, all of this stuff is about seeking and finding the things that you're looking for. And with the Taurus and the Pisces here, you know, and the dreams, like, there's a lot of illusion and delusion, you know, that there's an opportunity to overcome, and there's really cool stuff that can come with that, with the fifth house energy of, like, creating, enchantment, creativity, play, parties, humor, disco ball. You know, the Taurus, the bombshell, earthly, practical, steadfast, productive, fertile. And the Pisces, imaginative, compassionate, healing, mythical. There's opportunities here in the misunderstandings. And that's half the fun, you know? It's a process of discovery. And the stakes aren't as high as they felt as an orphan. And so this is where we're going to leave it here, because, you know, we enter into this next phase of, like, discovery. And I'm gonna just have us have a blessing. We're gonna get some blessing here. We enter this next phase of self-discovery, you know, working on the core strength from a place that says, all right, I'm not going to come at this as an orphan. I got to deal with that. You know, like that has to integrate into something new. But the process of discovery, do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Nothing's perfect. And nobody is. And nobody has a perfect perspective, and everybody's working it out. And that's half the fun. That's how you find each other. That's how the blockages to being seen clearly and to seeing clearly, like, go away. And so there might be a lot of frustration here in this process, but communication and fertility, I love those two things together. With divine feminine aspect, I love that too. You know, there's an authority issue. Like, you know, who's the authority? What's the authority? Where's the authority? Like, who's out of, like, this is power. You know, authority is like the light attribute or the positive thing of power. So, you know, when it comes to a power differential, when you want to show up as yourself, there's always going to be a power differential. Like, there's always you showing up for yourself, and that has to be a confrontation in one way or another with how somebody else was previously seeing things. It's always a confrontation to show up authentically and to speak with authentic expression. Always, every single time. Because either you are accommodating someone else's vision of you in order to keep them from feeling anything other than like a comfort zone with their own certainty, you know, or the fact that you aren't what they think is gonna have to confront what they think. Like, getting to know people, really getting to know people, involves a whole series of confrontations with someone else's assumptions every single time. And those assumptions come from them and their fears and their orphaning and whatever else there is. And that's, everybody gets a free pass with assumptions until they choose them over you, right? You know, when someone decides that they're more attracted or more content with their assumptions than they are with my sister had been talking about being curious, than they are with being curious about where you are, you know, that is a power problem, right? But authority here, you know, the frequency of authority reminds us that true authority is powerful, directed, and realized, yet receptive, wise, and loving. There's an opportunity to step away from all kinds of power games and step into a loving, receptive, wise, and powerful gnosis, knowing. That's that core strength. And so it comes from having to communicate. It comes from allowing for the confrontations to be there, but also reverting into this place of authority that says, I know that whatever it is that I'm bringing to the table confronts whatever the assumptions are. I know that I come with this energy of the siren. It's destructive, it's scary, whatever. You know, like, everybody has a different version of the siren that is there, forbidden. You're not allowed to be that. You're not allowed to look like that. You're not allowed to shine like that. You're not allowed to show up that way. That has to be mitigated. You know what I mean? Like, there's a spirit of envy. There's an energy that comes at people who have the audacity to speak from their own authentic core. It does confront people who can't, you know, or it does confront people who have levels of addiction with certainty. Like, everybody has it. And so I kind of want to say, you know, in terms of your fertility, what you have to create with receiving, being able to receive, and being able to be like give and take and have closeness, is that the communication is the key, and that from that communication, insights are born, opportunities are had, a way to show yourself in a light that someone didn't see before or weren't able to see before. Every confrontation with assumptions is an opportunity to smash them and be more seen, more understood, more loved, and to receive a true, like, you know, that mirroring that you really need. And so there's a lot here, and there's a lot of gift here. You know, you're getting this gift of communication that brings a fertility of receiving to your life. So this is excellent, right? But the mask coming off, this is a step 1, 2, 3 process where you're transforming, and you're transforming, you know, as a sense of self with the, you know, stepping into the Aquarius, stepping into, you know, all these ways of showing up that probably got persecuted, but you're strong enough to be yourself right now. And so you're going to start that journey. And it doesn't just mean taking off your mask with your quirky vulnerability. It also means taking off your mask with your strengths and being able to stand up and say, like taking off your mask with your weaknesses is one thing. Taking off your masks with your unique strengths is a total other thing, because you're stepping into archetypes that people might feel ways about. That's why they're hidden. That's why you've never allowed yourself to fully express them, because there was some sort of combative energy at the gate, you know what I mean? And so like rediscovering reclamation of self, Anana's descent into the other world, taking off all of that armor, is also showing up without armor. And that's with everything that's being seen. And so I invite you to welcome this next part of your voyage, which is stepping into what it means to be seen, to allow yourself to be seen. It's going to be rocky, pain in the neck, like process, because don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. It's not supposed to be a perfect thing. You're supposed to have trials and errors. It's supposed to be a little bit jumbly, allow for misunderstandings. They get you somewhere. Don't have some tyranny around needing to be perceived in the way that you want to be perceived, because you're not allowing for people to have a learning curve. You're not allowing for them to discover you, you know, and your fullness, which is, again, beyond what you're presenting, even what you want to present, you know? So let's leave that there. I'm going to see you guys again soon. It's a little bit wonky right now. I'm going to ask for your grace and forgiveness in terms of a production schedule, because I have to get my stuff in, and it's a lot of coordinating, and it's a very, very big move. And so like, I'm just going to be definitely every week, we're going to still have our enrichments. But in terms of Wednesdays, like, and me kind of figuring out the structure going forward, I have to kind of get through this move. So do provide me with a little bit of grace on that. It's going to be much better when I have, I'm going to be in a much better place. So let's leave it there, and I will talk to you guys again soon.